Hey everybody, Cody here. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Sales at DevPath, a learning platform that empowers engineering leaders to upskill their teams in generative AI and critical technology. Today, we're digging into the future of AI with a guest who has over 25 years of experience in software engineering. She has launched enterprise products for corporate giants like Oracle and Hewlett-Packard, as well as multiple startups. Most recently, she served as a Senior Vice President of Engineering at Tracer Labs. I'm very excited to welcome today's guest, Hema Ramaswamy. Hi, Hema.
Hi. Thank you so much, Cody and Jenna. I'm excited to be
Of
here.
course. Yes, we're very excited to have you here. Would you like to say a little bit more about yourself and introduce us to you?
Sure. I'm originally from the southern part of India. I came to the United States to pursue graduate studies. After graduation, I took up a job as a system software engineer in Austin, Texas. So looking back at my 30-year career in the tech industry, I feel fortunate to have built mission and business critical applications that have powered Fortune 100 companies. And in the last decade alone, I've had the honor of building, growing, and transforming a product engineering organization to scale to the hyper-growth needs of the business. That's pretty brief.
Perfect, that works. Well, the topic of the day is AI. So should we jump right in?
Sure.
Great, awesome. Well, the first thing that I wanted to ask you as a Senior Vice President of Engineering, what has been your approach to AI adoption and integration? It's also, it's new to everybody, and every organization is trying to figure out how to bring AI into their organization. So I'd just love to start there and kind of hear your approach to adoption and integration.
Yes. When there is this, explosive technology that is a new shiny object, there is this impulse to get on the bandwagon very quickly. My approach is basically like any other, engineer and apply engineering principles. So first of all, you have to get clarity on the why. The first step is to figure out why your business needs an AI solution. Are you ready for it? And what are the use cases that you are actually trying to solve using AI? And will it address your business needs? And the last part is, you have to actually be ready with some sort of measurements to see if the solution that you are building or deployed is going to produce the expected impact to the business. So that's on the approach side of things. On the integration side of things, I think you have to apply a little bit, you have to be a little bit more careful is what I'm trying to say here. This requires alignment, strategy, and careful tactical execution. You also have to remember that you still have a business to run, and you are responsible for business continuity while you are, piloting and exploring new technologies and its adoption and integration to provide value to your customers, right? So I would say on the integration part, I would go back to what I said. The approach shouldn't be activity-based, but it should be outcome-based. So for example, your strategy could be, hey, can I pick a potential high-impact project in our current, roadmap where I can apply AI? So because you've already figured out that you need to solve that problem, right? And the second, and the tactical part could be, you actually have to have a plan from, concept to solution and release, not just the technology parts of it, but also the other supporting functions like, product, marketing, customer success, release, and the feedback loop. So I would say these are my approach to, adopting and integration.
I like that when you said clarity, get clarity and why. It reminds me that that applies to a lot of areas in business too, and it's just a good reminder to bring that thought process of getting to the why into any business decision that you need to make. But specifically here with AI, it's probably even more important because everybody seemingly is trying to bring AI into everything in their lives, right? Even like I had a friend who shared a text message with me the other day, and her child was using Chat GPT to draft a text message to ask for more screen time, right? So everybody's using it. And I imagine in your organization, much like our organization, everybody has an idea of what we could do with AI. So how do you go about prioritizing AI projects and assessing their impact and actually deciding which ones should you actually invest time into?
That's actually a very deep question. Prioritization and alignment with the other business function is a challenge in itself. And when new technologies like AI and comes in, my mantra has always been start small. And the second one is don't unnecessarily curtail any sort of creative ideas or the energy to invent and bring in solutions, right? So it's actually basically what I'm trying to say here is encourage creative thinking and encourage new ideas coming in. But when you want to, allow these ideas to take shape, start small is how I would say. As far as prioritizing itself, I would just say that coaching the team to be aware of the new technologies and the pitfalls that would come ahead of time would really help the teams to plan their pilot work, right, or prototype work. So, for example, what I would do is if an idea comes, onto my radar, or if I come up with an idea, or the business comes up with an idea, I would assemble a very small dedicated team to run a pilot to determine feasibility and effectiveness of the solution. And as an engineering leader, it's my job to make time for that. So I would actually, look at what's on their plate and deprioritize some of the non-critical things to allow for new innovation and new technology adoption to come into play. The other thing that I would coach the team is when you are an engineer and you're trying to build engineering solutions, what gets engineers blindsided is basically they don't understand the implication of technology to the business. For example, data privacy, data compliance, legal compliance, ethical considerations, and things like that. So as a leader, executive leader, it's my job to equip them with all of this information so that they look at their prototype as a whole, not just like a small technology piece that just gets done and delivered. The last one I want to say is, let's say a solution comes to fruition from prototype, following all of these, processes. I would roll it out into a controlled environment so that I can gather feedback and measure impact, and then we can iterate over it. So I think that's how I have approached not just AI. I've been in the industry for 30 years, so new technologies have come many times. So this approach has, really worked well. It has helped the company from, not losing too much from investments, but it also doesn't curtail the innovation aspects of product development.
Yeah. You mentioned 30 years in the industry and we come across many new technologies. Have you ever experienced technology as explosive as AI, or is this even new territory for you?
Yeah, the internet.
Yeah, the internet was a big one, right? I mean, that might be
Yes,
the biggest.
that was during my time, and you have seen, and the internet technology is still evolving, and it just gets better and better. New frameworks come in, and so I see AI having similar impact on humanity.
Perfect. You mentioned
the other aspects also. The other one that comes to my mind is also mobile.
Yeah.
devices and the use of this. I mean, never did I imagine, a grandmother would be so adept in using a handheld device. So
Yeah, no, I mean, it is crazy to think that, in a short amount of time, we've had very revolutionary technologies come at us, right? It's pretty surreal to think back on. One thing you mentioned that I hadn't thought a lot about was the data privacy, the security, compliance, and legal and ethical considerations associated to AI. Do you find or have you found that legal teams are getting a little bit more involved with the engineering teams to understand how they're using AI?
yes, I think generally any any product to serve enterprise clients, we will have to go through security and legal diligence, right? At that point, the legal team does get involved, at least at the level of engineering leaders, to make sure that we have all the checks and balances in place. They go as far as reading documentation, technical documentations, and things like that. From an engineering process perspective, I create sections, bold sections as security, compliance, so that when engineers are thinking about architecture and design, there is an explicit section that they have to say, security, have I considered all of the security implications? And if it's not applicable, they can mark it as not applicable, but it's front and center. So I would say legal, security, data privacy, those are all part of the software development lifecycle process. Ethics is more of a business level question, and most of the time those conversations are had at the executive leadership or senior leadership level. And if there is anything that we have to do in technology to meet the considerations of ethics, the developers get involved for sure.
Yeah, and ethics. It seems like AI presents it from such a different angle than it's ever had to be considered and discussed before. So it's a very interesting one to think about. You'd mentioned starting small and going with a pilot first. Can you tell us about a pilot project that your team has worked on and how it went?
Sure. I mean, this is a DevPath education platform, so and it's also meets my value system. So removing friction in the path of developers who build and release product features every day has always been an area of focus for me. So I'll give you an example where we piloted an AI framework. So one of the things that was very prevalent or very created a lot of excitement in the developer community is using Copilot. And as an engineering leader, I enabled Copilot for all developers, not just for select developers or anything like that. It was open to anybody who had a development environment. Copilot was enabled, and this is something that it's very local to the developer. And I just gave it a few months, and then when I started collecting feedback, just for Copilot is a framework that auto generates code. It actually learns how you code. It looks at the system of existing systems, and it actually points you to methods that already exist, which does similar things and stuff like that. Just for context. So after a few months, when I gathered feedback, I actually picked different types of people to gather feedback. So for example, a junior mid-level engineer, found it very useful. It gave patterns and it pointed to existing code. It gave a lot of learning, self-study. They didn't have to rely on staff engineers or architects or, people who have been there longer to be able to, learn and code, right? A staff engineer's feedback was that it takes more time to correct that autopilot generated code rather than writing their own. So that is understandable because it's not a useful tool for them, but the same way that it's useful for the junior developer, right? And engineering manager's feedback was Copilot actually allows developers to automatically write unit test cases. So their job of policing and enforcement is now not that friction, doesn't have that friction. So
Yeah.
it was useful to them from that perspective. So while it did not eliminate the need for a human to, to write code, it definitely had the benefits in some aspects and didn't have benefits in other aspects. So I would say on the whole, it was a productivity booster, and it also presented opportunities for the engineering organization to address some of the tech debt that was already there in the code. So I would say that starting small, getting feedback, and then deciding whether we want to adopt worked out pretty well in this project.
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned the junior engineer versus the staff engineer there, and how they interact with AI in different ways with how it can help them. What skill gaps do you feel exist for experienced developers to learn to create AI products?
Yes. The amount of AI learning material that exists in the exists today is so vast that the senior engineers basically don't know where to start, right? So for an engineering leader and also an engineering, an executive at the company, having a company-wide AI strategy will give teams a set of business problems to solve. So I always had a running list of things that we want to solve. And so that kind of narrowed down the scope, which helped engineers to first go back to first principles and say, okay, this is the problem I want to solve. How am I going to solve it? Does AI solve it for me? And then they have a narrower scope to go and find the frameworks, the fundamentals that they need, and things like that. So I think a company-wide AI strategy definitely helps. And I would say that, ability to use first principle skills never goes out of date.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a great approach, and you're right. I mean, I think as new as AI is, that there is so many different places to go for learning, because every day people are learning stuff new and then publishing and talking about it. So I think getting that strategy in place for what it means for your organizations, that way you can narrow the opportunities for your teams and your engineers to where they can best learn as needed for the products that you're building, is a very important step for an engineering team. Within that same vein, what types of learning resources have your teams most enjoyed? Is it books? Is it interactive online courses? Is it real world projects? What's the learning style that your teams most prefer?
Yes, this is going into the personal space and the style. So what I did and what I do for every organization that I have led, I establish a culture of learning. I don't enforce how they learn. We've had book clubs. We had like a Friday afternoon community of practice time allocated. The teams themselves came up with what's called mob programming. They know that this is a problem that they want to solve, and they have multiple people, solving it together. They have pair programming where they learn, and then a lot of times, people just do independent study, right? So it's not my place to tell, how a certain person has to learn, but to provide a culture of learning and provide the freedom to choose how they want to learn is what I would say. No matter how someone learns or what method that they choose, my only ask of my team was that anything that you learn sticks better if you actually apply it and if you, use it, right? So that's why I always have a long laundry list of, problems to solve. And I say, well, pick one and say, pick one of your choice and then do it. That's worked pretty well.
Yeah. And so do you, and we have this conversation with our customers here at Educative and DevPath all the time, is, engineering teams always have a deadline. There's always we need to ship code, right? So engineering managers are sometimes hesitant or reluctant to encourage that learning and to take time while they're at the office. But at the same time, engineering managers also know that they can't always expect their team to take that time outside of work to do it when they have family and kids and soccer practice and other commitments. So do you provide time or make it okay for your engineers to learn during the day while they're at work, or how do you manage that?
Yeah, 100%. I'm not expecting any of my managers or my engineers to learn on their own outside of their own time. If they do, that's great. But from a business perspective, I see this providing a dedicated time to learning, provided a culture of learning actually helps the business, right? So otherwise, they will be just using the same thing that they came into the company with, right? So it's not a healthy environment if learning is not encouraged, and we have enough studies to prove that. So a couple of things that I have done. One, I have actually negotiated time with my counterparts like product and customer success, and I actually block off calendar saying that this is book club time for the engineering calendar. So you can't really go and have like a product requirements meeting or anything like that. Similarly, we've also dedicated a half a day of time for community of practice, and people come and share and learn and work together on new things, and it's only benefited the product and the business.
And do you track your team's progress or keep a list of what they're learning? And then I guess the second part to that question would be is how do you encourage sharing across the team of what everybody is learning so that way they can make it more of a collaborative learning experience as well?
Yes, the community of practice that I talked about is collaborative learning. A topic gets published, and then people come prepared, and they actually exercises are given, which are basically problems that we have to solve in the product. So that's a collaborative exercise. Book clubs is also a collaborative one. People take turns to read a book and present each chapter and things like that. So that's also a collaborative one. In terms of sharing, we used to have, what's called code talk, or, I used to call bagel bites, where people come and share what they have done. And most of the time, there are opportunities for features that a developer has released to share with the, external stakeholders. But the code talk and the technical talks are a way for developers to share the technical aspects of it. And another area where developers have also shared their technical work, especially DevOps, security operations, CI/CD, those types of engineering frameworks. Engineering all hands. There was always a showcase segment where they would share those knowledge.
Yeah, great. It's as you were talking, I was thinking, we're here to talk about AI, but I kind of took us down a learning track. But given that, DevPath is a developer learning platform, I could, talk about learning all day long. So I'll bring us back to center here. Can you share an example of how AI has changed your team's processes and workflows?
Yes. I gave you the example of adopting Copilot. It's definitely been a
Yep.
productivity booster. People, there's so much talk about, hey, don't use Copilot. You're sharing your code with an external thing. Irrespective of whether you share your code or not, it's going to be out there. There's just so much open source and things like that. So just having an open, mindset of adopting new technology has allowed the developers to get excited about new things, right? From a process perspective, I think, like I said, my philosophy is that yes, we are a business and we have to make our clients very happy. But if you don't make your developers very happy, they're not going to make your clients very happy. So anything that you can do to remove friction from their path would be great. So another example that I can give you also is we evaluated tools to improve test coverage, and what it would do is it would look at the code you write, it would understand the system, and it would generate test cases automatically for you, and it would also update the test cases if you are fixed a bug or if you've updated the code and things like that. And that's a game changer in a lot of ways, right? Because testing is kind of like an afterthought many a times, and maintaining existing test cases is also kind of an afterthought. So bringing AI tools to help developers think ahead has been a mindset shift that I have seen.
And as your teams have started to use, Copilot and other AI tools, is there, or maybe what are some of the biggest blockers that are now new blockers that you haven't had to deal with before when it comes to developing and delivering code, and how have you resolved them?
When you say blockers, blockers for adopting AI-powered tools?
Yeah, or maybe, maybe blockers that have arose because of the use of the AI tools within your own processes and workflows, and now it, requires you to work differently. Or maybe there's not any blockers that AI has introduced.
Well, there's always blockers. I think the hardest part is, to adopt AI solution, you need upfront investments, whether it's money, whether it's, time of engineers, time of engineering leaders. And the biggest blocker is to actually commit funds and time to be able to adopt these AI frameworks so that you can reap the benefits later. So I think, people don't see it. And that's been a challenge, I would say. And it requires, capital investment. So it's always going back to the budgeting process, and there's delays around that. Yeah.
Yeah. We all know how fun the budgeting conversations can be.
So that I would say is the biggest challenge.
Okay, good. So here's a fun question for you. So, how do you think AI will impact your work in the future?
Oh, AI will free my time from doing a lot of repetitive and maintenance work, and AI will also help me do work in areas that I'm not great, right? For example, writing. That's not an area of, strength for me. So when I say writing, like, business documents writing and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
AI helps me with that. It gives me the right words to use and things like that. So it will free up my time so I can actually focus on innovation and solve problems and technical problems in uncharted areas, right? And that's a big win for me.
Yeah, no, I think that might be. I think that maybe helping people write and communicate better, at least from how I've interacted with an AI, that has to be one of the more popular ways that it's helping everybody, whether you're an engineer or not, right? I know that's how I've used it. So, and then the other big topic that I constantly hear out there is, is AI going to take developers' jobs? What are your thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, I might be saying something that's not, the popular version out there. I would say there will definitely be a shift in how developers solve a problem. There will be more, tools and resources for them, and it will require developers to adopt new technologies, methods, frameworks. But I don't see a developer's job being eliminated. Hey, AI is built by developers. It didn't originate on its own, right? So
Right.
there has to be a shift in the how, but I don't see a complete elimination.
So developers are here to stay.
Yes, always.
Yeah,
Actually,
well,
there
I
will
hope
be
so. I think
more.
they are too.
Yeah, actually, there will be more developers who. So, you know, path to code, path the entry to coding has been difficult. I mean, 30 years ago, you had to have a degree and you had to have, go through the process. Now, with all of these AI tools and things like that, there are more and more people who are willing to come and, be a developer. And that's huge.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I guess that brings up my next question is, so for new developers or maybe for more senior developers, what are the most important skills developers need to be successful in the AI era?
Well, the obvious ones are, having technical proficiency, right? The fundamentals, the tools, frameworks, languages. um, but I'll give you a non-obvious one. One of my engineering values for my team and myself is that every developer is a product owner also. I recommend that developers learn to think like a product owner, you know, spend time understanding the domain, spend time, with users to learn their pain points, consider compliance and security, all the, business requirements. Um, these are not outside the scope of an engineer. It will actually help the business and the engineer's ability to make impact and in a very visible way. So I would say, you've already been a developer, you come with the technical knowledge, you know how to learn new technology, but spend some amount of time on these non-technical things.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. So we've talked about you've talked about AI, we've talked about developers a lot. Let's talk about the engineering manager a little bit. What's one thing engineering managers need to know to level up their careers?
Yeah. First of all, I want to say that engineering managers need to figure out where they want to go next, right? Obviously, they've been an engineer and they've made it to an engineering manager. If they want to continue to stay, I think a lot of what I said before holds good for them. The technology, the business domain knowledge, and being a product owner and things like that. But if an engineering manager has aspirations to become, senior level and executive level engineering leaders, then they actually have to start practicing the art of big picture strategic thinking leadership. For that, I would say that the engineering leader will have to spend some time learning the different functions of product development and business development. Whether it's product design, customer success, business development, sales. You don't have to be expert in these areas, but you actually know what that function does for the business so that you are a partner to these organizations. So I would say that, engineering managers should spend time learning, the business side of things.
Yeah, and for you, you've spent time with Oracle and Hewlett Packard. How have you developed strategic leadership skills over the course of your career?
Mine is just experience, I would say. So there are many things, but I'll start by saying that first you have to have an intention to learn to operate at higher levels, right? And then if you have that intention, you will automatically start seeking positions that allow you to practice these strategic leadership skills. And that's just been my journey. I don't have a recommendation of how somebody should do it, but I can just share how I have done it. So earlier in my career, I was a generalist, meaning I will do work on different components of the product. I acquired knowledge in different parts of the systems as a result. Then I was open to learning new things, and it didn't matter if I was recognized as an expert in one area or not. So a lot of cross-functional new projects would come in to me, and since I had functional knowledge of different components, it was easier for me to just expand on that. So I developed product and system architectural skills along the way. Then I became a product architect, and then that actually opened up a lot of opportunities for me to play product manager, program manager. So I really learned the business side of things from a product management, engineering operations, sales cycle, and things like that. And then at that point, people start noticing how you operate, and I got recruited to incubate and innovate and release a commercial product for HP Labs. So I learned strategy, business development, legal, license, partnerships, internal, external, marketing. So it's just been a very progressive, learning for me. And all of these experiences have now come handy as an engineering executive leader for me.
That's great. It's fun to hear of your journey and how far you've come and how you learned along the way. I think maybe the takeaway there from what you just shared in simplest terms is never quit learning and continue to put yourselves into situations where you can learn, and if you do, you'll realize the success and the outcomes that you're looking for.
I'm still learning, and I still learn quite a few things from this call.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Well, I know that I have learned a lot from you, and I'm sure that all of our viewers and those that are watching have too. Hema, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. It went by really quick, but I had such a great conversation. I really appreciate you sharing your insights into the future of AI and what it means for developer learning. And we wish you all the best on your journey, and we hope to have you back sometime. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cody, and thank you, Jenna, for reaching out to me. It was a wonderful experience for me to share.